This is Long Shots, VSiN's premier golf betting podcast. Here's Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, and Kelley Bydlon.
It is a very special edition of Long Shots here on a Tuesday at VSiN. Matt Brown, Kelley Bydlon, Wes Reynolds on the desk here at the South Point. And fellas, we're going to do this live. Do it! We're going to let everybody know what we are going to be betting this week. We are going to give you placement market bets if any head-to-heads happen to be in our accounts, but certainly we have some long shot outrights as well. Now, will they hit or not? This might be a top-heavy tournament, but I do have some pretty long numbers in my account as well, so you want to stick around for that. But as we do every single week, Wes Reynolds, you do an excellent article over at VSiN.com where you break down the course and break down all of the things that are important in this tournament. But we're going to ask for a condensed version here as we are live on a Tuesday of what people are looking at as we head to New York.
Yeah, we are at the East Course at Oak Hill Country Club, Pittsfield, New York, greater Rochester, New York area. Designed by Donald Ross in 1926, but it's a different course. The renovation was done by Andrew Green, who restored this in 2019, kind of trying to get it to the original Donald Ross concept, but also realizing that this is 2023, so being in touch with the modern game. So last time we saw Oak Hill was actually 2013 for the PGA Championship, won by Jason Duffner. Oak Hill's hosted it 3 times. 200 yards longer compared to the last time we saw it. So it's a par 70, 73, 94, 6th longest course on the tour.
And Wes, to your point here, Jason Ballard is the club's head golf professional. He was on PGA Tour radio earlier this week and said, basically, the only thing that's the same about this course is that it's par 70.
Right.
So that's what he said. So that to let everybody know.
And they removed a lot of trees. Now, it's still tree lined, but now it's like if you miss the fairway, you don't necessarily have to chip out back into the fairway. You still have a shot at the green. It's obviously very difficult. Fairways are very narrow, too, 27 yards wide, 5th most narrow on the PGA Tour this year, protected by a lot of bunkers. And the man that did the renovation, Andrew Green, said, hey, we want these bunkers to be hazards. So, when we get into kind of the stats we modeled, we will touch on that. The usual major championship rough, 3 to 4 inches, mixture of rye, bent grass, and fescue. The greens are bent grass. They are small greens, though, 4th smallest on tour, about 4,500 square feet. You have water in play on about 6 holes. Allen Creek runs throughout the course. The par 5s, there's only 2 of them on a par 70, both at over 600 yards, so not gimme birdie opportunities. But, typical, I think, Northeast classical design golf course. It's very much, it's kind of like the PGA. It's like a poor man's U.S. Open. You're not going to see, I think, scores in like the mid to high teens this week. I think the target they were saying was 10 or 12 under. I think it might be 6 or 8 under that's the winner.
Yeah, I believe we saw what Westgate posted prop. I think it was 10 and a half, right? I think it was 10 and a half under par. So, yeah, looking about in that range. Just to add on a bit, Wes, I think it's really fascinating. Clear out the trees. Does it open up different styles like we saw, a few years ago with Bryson DeChambeau and Matthew Wolff at the U.S. Open? Are we bombing, gouging? We've heard that rough that's right off the fairway. It's thick, but it's just as thick about 20 yards, further wider past the fairway. So I'm interested to see some of the strategies that some of these guys take this week.
Yeah, some of the guys I've been listening to that are up there, which, by the way, we're going to take the show on the road next year. We're going to all the majors and a couple elevated events, all the majors, everything like that. Yeah, all the stuff like that. So we're until then, we have to rely on other people. We'll be doing our own firsthand stuff whenever we come next year. But guys that are up there, one of the things that they noticed was the way that the rough is cut. If you miss 1 yard or whether you miss 25 yards off, it's all the same height, right? So it's going to be just as penal whether you barely miss or whether you miss a lot, right? And so that's just something to keep in your back pocket here as you start to, we'll talk about the model stuff that we put in as well. But if you're building your own model, we look at good drives some weeks. Good drives doesn't matter really this week as much, I don't think, because, again, with good drives, if you miss a fairway, it's like, you're in that first cut of rough, not a big deal, right? Most of these guys are so good that they're able to get it up there. No problem. Not like us. I'm in the rough. It's never happening.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
never
happening. But these guys, they're so good. But apparently the way that this is, it's going to be penal no matter what. So something at least, to keep in mind.
It sounds to me, I think there's a lot of guys that are going to utilize the strategy this week, Matt, of we know there's some water. We know there's some fairway bunkers in play on a lot of these tee shots. I think a lot of their strategy this week for some of these longer hitters, it's going to be, let me make sure I clear the bunkers, and wherever it lands, hopefully it's in the fairway. But if it lands out of the fairway, I don't care. I just got to make sure I clear those bunkers.
And the thing about it too, there's a wide variety, especially on the par fours. Like I mentioned that there are 6 par fours that are 460 or above. The last 2, by the way, 502 at the 17th. 497 at the 18th, but you've got a drivable one on the 14th. You've got a subpar 400 yard on the 12th, where maybe the longer hitters can get it there. So you've got really a wide variety. I think that this, at least from what I'm reading and the research I've done on it, it's going to be a really cool test.
Guys, as we look here, no shock who's at the top of the leaderboard as far as the odds board anyway. Scotty Scheffler sitting 7-1, John Rahm 7.5-1, then a big gap into that second tier. Some very interesting developments, though, over the last 48 hours, 72 hours, which is you're tied for third when it comes to the odds board is now Xander and Rory. Rory has drifted all the way from 11-1 to 16-1, which is the same price that you can get Xander Schauffele at this week. Patrick Cantlay is at 18. Brooks Koepka has taken a ton of money.
Wow.
He is down to 20-1 there. Finau 22. And then there's a pretty big jump to Jason Day at 28, and then we'll get 30 or longer. And we'll talk about it. Some of these other guys, of course, as the show goes on. But as we look at the top here, rightfully so, Scheffler and Rahm, they're in a league of their own. I get it why they're 7.5-1. We don't really need to talk about that. We get it, right? I mean, they're the best 2 golfers in the world. Any given time, it's 1A, 1B. You can argue amongst yourselves who you think is the actual best player. I don't care. But getting to this Rory thing, and Kelley, you and I even alluded to this yesterday on the Monday pod, and Wes, I think this number is actually getting more in line with where Rory is now comparatively to the rest of these fields.
Yeah, I'm looking at our rundown for the program here, how we're approaching the big 3. It's really the big 2 right now, I think, with Scheffler and Rahm. Rory has absolutely drifted up. And look, missed the cut in 2 high-profile events. Missed the cut at the Masters, missed the cut at the Players. Now he goes to Rochester this week for the PGA, where his wife, I try to uncover every angle when I'm doing this. His wife,
this
Erica.
This is important, though. Yeah.
His wife, Erica, is from Rochester, New York, actually a graduate of the Rochester Institute of Technology. So, has some family there, has some friends there. Erica used to work for the PGA of America. So is this kind of a get-right spot for his mind? Because if we watched him a couple weeks ago at the Wells Fargo, he didn't look like he was having a lot of fun.
Yeah, and just digging, I dug a little deeper on that, Wes. So he is a member at the club, technically. And what it sounds like is during COVID, they ended up spending a lot more time up there. So I kind of laughed when I first heard about these, like it kind of being a home course for Rory. I'm like, yeah, he lives down in Jupiter, Palm Beach Gardens area. There's a million courses alone down there you could play that are high-level quality courses. But no, I mean, it sounds like he's got more experience at this course, at least recently, than most of these other guys. So how do you factor that in? I don't know, because we don't know exactly how much he's played. But as far as the state of the game goes, you guys are absolutely right. I think his odds belong right there with 16-1, right around Schauffele and Cantlay.
Yeah, I was going to say, the conversation almost changes from 24 hours ago for me in this, and certainly changes from 72 hours ago, because a guy that is in his form playing up against, again, or Scotty and a Rahm, who every single time that they tee it up, it's almost like they have at least their B+ game. And then, and so at 11-1, completely, I mean, disregarded, right? I mean, like scratch it off the list instantly. But now this number has drifted, and who knows where it may drift by the time this thing actually tees off. We're still, a day and a half away from this going down. Could I find myself getting interested in Rory, or at least maybe if it's not an outright play, maybe it's because as the outright drifts, so is the top 10 number or the top 5 number or anything like that. So maybe there's a placement market bet now that I wasn't even. It's approaching somewhere in there, as we get to it right now.
Like Rory hits 18, I think I'm in. Somehow, like you said, it might not be outright. It might be because, like you said, all the other odds are correlated. They're going to drift as well. But like we're seeing 16, he gets to 18. I'll probably be in some market on Rory.
Wes, one of the things you did a great breakdown there of the course. One of the things we've got to talk about, I guess, just a little bit is the weather. And so it's going to be cold. as of right now, look, weather changes. We're not weathermen. Weather changes, just going with the forecast. They're thinking Thursday might even start late because there might be a frost delay. It's supposed to be so cold on Thursday morning up there. Of course, it'll warm up throughout the course of the day, but as it warms up, also the winds supposedly start to pick up a little bit in the afternoon as well. Did either of you factor in anything from a weather standpoint as you started to look at golfers or not, or is it just too volatile to really...
I'll say that for you guys know I do a lot of first round leader betting stuff. I haven't made any bets yet. I always like to make those, kind of as close to tournament as possible. I'll get them in likely tomorrow night. If anybody wants to ask me about what I'm betting, you can hit me up on Twitter at Kelley Bydlon. No problem. I'll tell you what I'm betting. I think Thursday, though, to talk about that, Matt, I do think what it's looking like right now, and it really hasn't changed much the past couple days. You're right. I mean, 36 degrees is what it's saying right now at 5 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, you're near frost level temperatures there. I think there's an advantage in that afternoon for the Thursday guys. So if you're looking at first round leader bets, I think there could be an advantage in the afternoon. However, does that correlate to a wave advantage? I don't think so, because Friday it looks like it's supposed to be windy all
Friday and
day.
Saturday are the tough wind conditions, at least at first glance. But look, the highs on the weekend are going to get into the mid 60s, so it's not going to be very warm like it was in Tulsa last year.
The morning, or at least in the morning temperatures combined with the winds, at least, and weather changes. But Matt Fitzpatrick put out a tweet in which, you know how far these guys hit.
Oh, I saw this.
They hit the ball a long way. It's a 230-yard par 3. He had to hit a 3-wood into it. These guys, a 3-wood? No, they're hitting 3-woods 260, 265, 270. And he had to hit a 3-wood into that. When we come back, we'll talk about the stats that matter. Stick around. It's Long Shots here on Tuesday.
This is Long Shots, VSiN's premier golf betting podcast. Here's Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, and Kelley Bydlon.
There's a lot to bet on the next 30 days. For a limited time, you can subscribe to VSiN for only $9.99. That is $13.46 Canadian. That gets you insight into daily baseball best bets, NBA and NHL playoffs. Only VSiN Pro subscribers get access to our daily recap of the top plays made by VSiN show hosts and guests. Tools like our betting splits, and you get our VSiN expert leaderboard as well. You can see who's got the hot hand over there. Sign up now for only $9.99. VSiN.com/subscribe. Now, you're either going to find us at the top or the very bottom of that leaderboard, because every one of our golf bets gets graded as if it were the same as every other bet that is made. And so we're either in first or dead last pretty much at all times, because that's just the way it works out.
I believe I was in dead last place last week with 0-7. I was like, what did that happen? And Wyatt was producing today. He's like, oh, golf. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what happened.
Because everything's graded as a full unit, and so, it is what it is. But hey, it's a fun tool.
It is.
It's fun. You go there. So every single week we do modeling. That is kind of how we try to go about deciding which players we at least want to consider in our player pool, and then we'll narrow things down from there. I'm not a slave to the numbers. Sometimes I am a slave to a number if the model tells me one thing and the price on that player is something just absolutely completely different. I will then at that point just go in and make a bet just because of what the model tells me. But a lot of times it's just I want to identify guys that the numbers tell me I should be considering, and then I make the choices from there. So we do this on a weekly basis. We have different modeling systems that we use as well. If you want to take golf betting a little bit more seriously, there are several very excellent sites out there. You can tweet us on the side. We can tell you the ones that we use, but it's pay to play, so it's not free, but there's advanced statistics out there that you can utilize and to help you make your betting card on a week-to-week basis. So, Kelley, I'll start with you on this. Where did you go with your model this week?
Yeah, look, I think for just a more macro sense, and when we're just talking about what games are going to fit this course most, I think we're looking at a really, really tough golf course that's going to test every part of your game, right? So I think that's especially the short game. I think you're going to, if you have a golfer, because a lot of times we do this on long shots, right? We're especially me. I'm more guilty than any of the three of us sitting here, where I'll erase putting out of the equation completely. Short game stuff, sometimes I might not rely on too heavily. I want the guys that are going to get tee to green as efficiently and best as possible. Of course, that is still true this week, but this course is going to test every one of these golfers where they have to be good off the tee. They've got to be good on approach. They've got to be good hitting greens that are small greens, which means they're going to have to play around the green well, get out of these really deep sand traps that we're seeing and bunkers that we're seeing on the golf course. So that's where I think you got to first keep that in mind when I approach this. The second was, I think any distance and off the tee stats that we're talking about only helps here. So that's really where I started framing my kind of overall model this week, where I did factor in just with specific statistics, strokes gained off the tee and driving distance. Like you were talking about, Matt, I didn't do anything with good drive gains or fairways gained. It's obviously it's going to be helpful to be in the fairway, but I think some of these guys, they're not going to care as much about that. So I went driving distance, strokes gained off the tee, strokes gained approach heavy here. And then proximity distances, I'm sure we all looked at the same, but 175 yards to 200 yards plus. Over 50% of these approach shots are going to come from that range, 175 plus for the tournament. So that is really important this week. On a par 70, I did the rare kind of strokes gained just par 4 in general because we have so many different length par 4s that we're dealing with this week. So I just went strokes gained par 4 in general, just a little bit smaller, just to kind of see where guys really ranked out on that. Opportunities gained, use that this week. That is, birdie opportunity within 15 to 10 feet of the hole. So that is, with smaller greens, I always like to look at that stat because if you're going to score, you got to put it close, right? I think greens in regulation, it's a great stat to look at, but your greens in regulation percentage is going to be so much higher on bigger greens, right? So it's going to be a little deceiving when you go from big greens to small greens. These are really small greens. So did that. And then we go strokes gained around the green, sand saves, scrambling. I factored in all three. I think, especially if we start to see weather, wind become an issue, that could be even more important this week than we might think heading into it. So factored all those in. 3-putt avoidance. I do this every time we're putting on small greens, right? If you're going to be on a small green, you can't 3-putt. You better get up and down in 2 at least. And then a couple different putting proximities. So model's pretty heavy this week.
I was going to say that is a robust model that you've got over there. People talk trash to me, and if you are just listening to what will soon be posted audio version of this, and you're not watching the video version, which by the way, $9.99 over at VSiN.com, you can come in and you can watch this on camera. I catch flack for my little space station that I've got going on here. Kelley has 2 full-ass computers over there on the desk, and Max at that. How rich, I might add. Look, how rich are you? 2 Max over there on the desk. But it's like this guy's got 2 full computers. I have the little baby screens over there. Kelley's working with the 2 full machines, 2 Max going on. He's got $10,000 worth of computers sitting over there on the desk.
Like mine, I usually got the cords all tangled up.
No, he's just sitting over there with 10 G's worth of computers going on over on the desk. But Wes, I think I would imagine a lot of the same for you, but how did you weight things perhaps, and what did you super focus on, and what did you maybe not as much as Kelley?
A lot of the same and a little bit more general too, because we don't have precise live numbers. Yeah. So it's hard to model when you're going last 36 rounds. So some of this stuff is from last year. But still, I think with some players, we know Bryson DeChambeau is always going to be near the top or off the tee. So, that doesn't have as much variance. But I did a couple combo platters here. I did a strokes gained off the tee and driving distance gained because I did want a little bit of accuracy, even though I think you still have clear lines at the green, even if you miss the fairways. Shots are still very difficult, though. And then I did the general approach numbers, along with proximity from 175 to 200 and then 200 plus. And that's going to be about 55% or so of your approach shots. You're not going to have a lot of wedges here, by the way. You're just not, unless you have badly missed the fairway, and then you got to have a forced layup or something. But you're going to have longer to mid irons here. So I looked at that. Combination of strokes gained around the green, scrambling gained, and sand saves, because like I said, the renovation crew, they wanted the bunkers to be hazards here. That if you hit it in the bunker, oftentimes we're watching regular tournament, they're like, get in the bunker, get in the bunker. You don't want to be in the bunkers this week because it's going to be very difficult on you. And then I used a little bit of strokes gained putting, bent grass, probably about 10% or so if you're really quantifying percentages. These greens are more true, too. Like, these are easier greens to putt on. But I still think you want to look at the better bent grass putters, at least for some context. And then I did strokes gained total difficult scoring conditions, because I think the scoring is going to be difficult. I think 6 to 8 under par is going to be your winner here. So that's what I looked at. And I don't disagree with anything Kelley used with bogey avoidance or 3-putt avoidance or anything like that.
Yeah, I didn't do 3-putt avoidance. I did do bogey avoidance. It's, I think this is one of those deals where sometimes you're just going to need to take your par, man. Like take your par. Don't get aggressive. Sometimes you can't pin seek here. Which is why, we'll get to our plays a little bit later, but there are some of these guys that I think we play at some of these courses because they're so good with their irons, but they're pin hunters, right? And that isn't necessarily going to play here, in my opinion. And so I'm kind of off those guys, fading those guys. So bogey avoidance for me, because I think you just need to sometimes just take your medicine looking at some guys like that. And I really did double dip a ton on the driving. I did driving distance, and then I also did just total driving as well, because if you're not going to be super long off the tee, I at least would like you to be accurate so that you're playing out of the fairway. And so some of these guys that did end up making my card, it's not like they're short, but they're certainly not the longest guys, but they're in the fairway more times than not, right? They're really good off the tee, and so that, for me, factored in a ton. And then all the rest of the stuff that you guys said, really and truly focused more on, I think, sand saves this week than maybe I have in a very, very long time for that, and then just a ton of around the green stuff, because not only are the greens small, but as we're talking about, it looks like these winds are going to be awful on Friday and Saturday, and so you're just going to miss greens even if you hit a great shot. Like, you can hit a great shot and still miss the greens.
Well, one of the other things, right, Wes, that was changed on the course, right? You had some of that rough leading up to the green. They've trimmed that. We're going to get those sloped, mowed down, fringe runoffs.
Yeah, and you get those false fronts too, like on Donald Ross designs. You'll see some others on tour. They're not totally comparable from a course standpoint, but East Lake, obviously in Atlanta, where they have the Tour Championship, Detroit Golf Club, there's several Donald Ross designs, even though I think this course profiles more like a Bethpage Black or a lot of these, Aronimink, another Ross design, or Shinnecock, or one of those courses.
Yes, I just think that's another part of where those strokes gained around the green are going to come into play even more, right? You might hit the green, but that ball might run right off, and you're going to have to chip.
And it's not like what we saw, at least heading into the Masters. The LIV guys got a lot of action this week. Brooks Koepka, as we mentioned, down to 20-1. Dustin Johnson down to 30-1. He was as high as 50. You go down a little bit further. Cam Smith is sitting 35. He was as high as kind of 48 throughout the market.
And this week, if they're in contention, the broadcast, CBS will stick with the broadcast, unlike the affiliate that LIV is on.
We're sitting here. Taylor Gooch, obviously a couple-time winner over there on LIV, down to 65-1 at DraftKings. I think a lot of people went in and just started looking at people's recent success and Taylor Gooch. So some of these LIV guys are getting action, unlike we saw whenever we were heading into Augusta. When we come back, we'll talk about some props that are out there. Is it anything that we would be interested in at all? And of course, we will be getting to our betting cards as well. Stick around. Long shots here on a Tuesday.
This is Long Shots, VSiN's premier golf betting podcast. Here's Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, and Kelley Bydlon.
Before making your next bet, be sure to head to VSiN.com to check out the current betting splits data. Split bets! Want to know where the money and the bets are moving for every game? Betting splits page updated with DraftKings odds every 10 minutes, sometimes 9, so you can see the changes in all the action, find out where the public is betting based on the number of tickets and where the money doesn't match the public opinion. Betting splits, just another way VSiN's here to make you a more informed better year-round. Head over to VSiN.com to check all of that out. All right, so there are multiple different ways you can go about betting this. I imagine you probably dipped your toe in for the Masters. If you did not, and if you were just going to bet some golf for the first time, you can bet the outrights, of course. That is something that's very obvious. Who's going to win the tournament? That being said, only one person wins the tournament, as you know. So you can bet top 5s, you can bet top 10s, you can bet top 20s. There's a top 30 market bet at DraftKings this week, also a top 40 market. We'll talk head-to-heads a little bit later in the show, which this is just who finishes better, this guy or this guy. You don't care about anyone else in the field. It is just two golfers going at it. There's group betting as well, so they will put 3, 4, 5 different players together, and you just bet who's going to win out of that grouping of players. So tons of different ways to go about this. So as you get in, we highly advise each and every week on the show, please don't only bet outrights because, again, only one golfer wins a golf tournament, and it's very tough if you actually want to do this and try to grind out a profit and at least keep your bankroll healthy. You will go several tournaments without hitting an outright. And if you've only bet outrights and it's just negative ROI, negative ROI, negative ROI over and over and over again, you're going to look up and your bankroll is going to look a lot worse than it did a month prior. So we will kind of get into some of those as well as we dig in a little bit further. But there's also some fun things out there. Kelley, you dug up a couple of some fun props that are out there, which is big guns versus the field, and the big guns being Rahm, Scheffler, McIlroy, and Cantlay versus the field. If you want those 4 big guns, plus 175, the field is minus 250. Fellas, Rahm and Scheffler are the best 2 golfers on the planet. There's no question about that. Cantlay certainly is right up there, and he has taken a bunch of money as we enter this tournament. He is now down to 16 as well. So as we have been on air, it has actually changed. And he is down to 16, the same number as Xander and Rory. And then, of course, we've already talked about Rory a ton here. That being said, if you're going to give me over 100 golfers versus 4, I will always take the over 100 golfers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would too. The inclusion of Cantlay here, though, makes this more interesting.
It does. Yeah, it does.
I mean, we know Rory's playing a little bit more, a little worse recently. And Patrick Cantlay has been playing incredible golf. Matt's been making fun of me for a couple weeks. Yes, I did bet him this week. We'll get to that. Yeah, don't worry. But I like him a lot this week. So the inclusion of him makes that plus 175 a little bit more interesting to me. But yes, your point.
And if you get if some out of nowhere we get A+ Rory, then it's probably, I mean, I'm looking at this assuming we don't get A+ Rory, Wes, but it's like, if you did get A+ Rory, like I said, you always at least get B+ Rahm and Scheffler. And so so if you get A+ Rory and now you add Cantlay in there, it's likely, if you do get that, it's likely one of those 4 guys does win the tournament. But that being said, I just have to take the field in something like that.
Yeah, I would too. And look, the way that is set up, by the way, is you're getting the 1, 2, 3, 4 in the official world golf rankings. Xander Schauffele, of course, being 5th. So I'd be interested if they had top 5 against the field, what that would have been this week.
Then we have the winner of the tournament to be in the final pairing. Yes, minus 225. No, plus 175. Look no further than the tournament last week in which we had 7,000 guys that were in contention into the tournament. So,
or last year where I got very lucky to win this event with Justin Thomas when he was 6 shots back and somehow found his way into a playoff. Mito Pereira obviously should have won the event. Hits it in the water off the tee, and JT beats Will Zalatoris in the playoff.
So the winner in the final pairing, the yes is minus 225, the no plus 175. Fellas, with a tournament in which we think it's going to be as low scoring as it is, the final pairing could easily just go 1 under on the final round, and a guy in the second pairing or third pairing go 2 or 3 under in the final round. And I would probably take the no again at the plus money if I had to bet it.
Yeah. In full transparency, I don't think any of us are betting on any of these, right? But they're fun. These are always fun to talk about. I would definitely lean that way as well. If we expect minus 10, minus 11 to be kind of the max of what we're going to see the winner at, what you just said, Matt, it's okay. If someone's best round of the tournament happens in that final round and they're only a shot or 2 off the lead, boom, you cash it right there.
Wes, I'm really interested in your thought on this one. Will there be a playoff? The no, minus 400, the yes, plus 300. And again, if we think it's low scoring and if we think that there might be kind of some jumbling there as we enter on a Sunday, I don't know how you could lay the $4 anyway. I don't know.
And last year was the first playoff, by the way, since 2011 when Keegan Bradley beat Jason Duffner at the Atlanta Athletic Club. So 5 under was the winning score last year. So the lower the score, or the higher the score, I should say, is the more likely then you're going to have a playoff. Because if you look back, I think there was a playoff in 2010, Keimer over Watson at Whistling Straits. And then the last one before that, I believe, was 2004, Vijay Singh over Chris DeMarco and Justin Leonard. And that was 8 under par. So if you think it's going to be, where I think it's going to be like 6 under, I think it's more realistic than not. I don't know if I'm going to bet that prop, though.
Yeah, I think that those 2 are the most interesting, the ones we have at the bottom there. Because I think if we've got jumbled scoring like that, Matt, there's a better chance we have a playoff. So it's
arguably the deepest field in history, right? Like we have legitimate 30 different golfers that it would not surprise me if they won this tournament.
And it's a deep field considering the fact that you have 20 club pros, by the way, in the PGA Championship. They're not amateurs. They are club PGA licensed professionals, but they're in this field, so you do have 20 that are kind of dead money.
Yeah, and then, just hitting on the hole-in-one prop quick. Like, this is what? We've got 4 par 3s. But 2 of them are beasts. You brought up Matt Fitzpatrick's hitting a 3-wood off one. Yeah. I don't like the chances of a hole-in-one happening on that. Yeah. So you're really looking at maybe 2 holes that have a chance to get a hole-in-one on. So I think a no at even money there. I think it's a pretty good bet.
Me too. Wind conditions, all the stuff. Like, I'm kind of with you. There is a 155-yard par 3, but again, the green is apparently like the size of this desk, and so like that's something that we'd like. Wes, I don't want us to run out of time here, so let's go ahead and get to your betting card so that we can make sure you have time to do some explaining as well.
Yeah, we'll do a little rapid fire here on the outrights. I wish I would have waited. I would have got a better number, but you could still do that in some spots. I did end up, even though it wasn't one of my first guys, Rory McIlroy at 14-1. I just think, he's cooled off a little bit, obviously, but if you look, he's got a short drift. Maybe this is a good spot. Keep in mind, he ended last year and began this year on a 7-event streak of finishing 4th or better and had 3 victories in that span. Tour Championship, CJ Cup, Dubai Desert Classic.
If you're listening to us live, by the way, Wes, screen just flashed 18-1 at DraftKings right now.
Okay, so yeah, you can get better. I think that's a jump in.
But real quick, you'd add on at that price.
Absolutely.
Right? If you bet at 14, you're going to add a little bit. At 18,
I'm going to have to.
Literally just flashed as you were giving your spiel right
and
there.
He goes on a Donald Ross design where I know it's not a totally comparable course, but he won 3 times at East Lake for the Tour Championship. So he actually won there last fall as well. So Rory, I think on this drift now at 18, like when you see nobody picking him, and like I haven't even like the casual people that are like not golf bettors that are like media personalities aren't even picking this guy. So maybe that's the time to jump in. Xander Schauffele, 19-1. I have him at a little bit better, but that's at least somewhat available in the market. Best player never to win a major. He'd be at the top of my list. Has 6 top 5s, 4 additional top 10s. Plays really well in the Northeast. Very good at Shinnecock Hills a couple years ago and at Bethpage and at Wingfoot. Won the Travelers Championship last year in Connecticut. Really good form. Reached the quarters at the match play, 10th at Augusta, 4th at the Harbor Town, 4th in the pairs event with Cantlay in New Orleans, 2nd at Quail Hollow. Speaking of Cantlay, Patrick Cantlay, 20-1. I think his driver's going to be really big this week, and he's a guy with 2 wins in the Northeast at the BMW Championship. Also has won twice at Muirfield Village for the Memorial on these bent grass greens. Number 2 in strokes gained OTT. Number 1 in strokes gained putting on bent grass last 36 rounds. Tony Finau, 25-1. I have a little better number. He's just got the win equity now. He's got 4 stroke play wins in his last 19 events. 1 on a Donald Ross design at Detroit last summer at the Rocket Mortgage. Number 1 on approach on the PGA Tour this year. Cameron Young, this is one I bet a couple weeks ago. I don't really love it. He's not in really great form, but this is where the best weapon in his bag, the driver, can be used and used very often. So I think maybe he turns it around this week. Tyrrell Hatton, who I added this morning, 5 top 6s so far in 2023, and 4 of them at designated events. 3rd at the Wells Fargo, by the way, 2 weeks ago. And then a couple bombs I did play. Harris English, 250-1. 3rd at Quail Hollow, very quietly behind Wyndham Clark and Xander Schauffele. T2 at the Arnold Palmer, really putted well in that event. T12 at Riviera, where he led the field in putting. Really good on these long classical designs on majors. 4th at Wingfoot in the 2020 U.S. Open. 3rd at Torrey Pines in 2021. Had a lot of injuries in 2022, but I think he's back now. And then Cam Davis, 250-1, another Donald Ross design winner at the Rocket Mortgage 2 years ago in Detroit. 6th at the Players, 7th at the RBC, so 2 designated events with really good fields, and he was on that first page of the leaderboard.
We will talk your props and your matchups on the other side. If we pop it back up on the screen real quick, Rory McIlroy, Xander Schauffele, Patrick Cantlay, Tony Finau, Cam Young, Tyrrell Hatton, Harris English, and Cam Davis in the outright market. You'll also get Kelley and me talking our picks as well. Stick around.
This is Long Shots, VSiN's premier golf betting podcast. Here's Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, and Kelley Bydlon.
Become a VEASAN Pro subscriber today. Get a daily email recapping all the best bets from VEASAN show hosts and guests. You also get unlimited access to our VEASAN.com/picks page, sort by sport, matchup, event date, and more. You can check out the VEASAN Experts Leaderboard. You can view the betting records, profit, and ROI, see which VEASAN guy has the hot hand out there. You can also get our Pro Picks betting splits, power ratings, plus 24/7 video access if you become a pro subscriber today. Head on over to VEASAN.com/subscribe. Just $9.99 American. Wes, we just went through your outrights, a nice card in which I will let you know I do have a couple of as well on mine. But let's run through your props as well, because these are some, if we're going to preach that people need to do more than just bet the outrights, we need to get to these as well. And you have some matchups head-to-heads as well.
Yeah, and the placement markets I'll get out in the overnight tonight or tomorrow morning. But I did play a couple props here. Low South African, you can play those low nationality props. I went with Dean Burmester at 8-5. That's plus 160. 3 top tens in his last 4 starts on the LIV Tour. We talked about distance, that this is a long course. He's one of the longest drivers in the field, and I think that that's going to be an advantage this week. If you look at the market, you don't have the Charles Schwartzels and the Louis Oosthuizens in this PGA. You've got 4 South Africans. One is Tristan Lawrence, who's in really tough form this year. Aki Stridham, who is an absolute journeyman, who won his first DP World Tour event at the age of 38, playing in his first major. So it's basically what I boil it down to, Dean Burmester against Bezuidenhout. And I like Burmester in terms of the length. Adrian Meronk, who I hit a couple weeks ago at the Italian Open, probably played his way on the Ryder Cup team. 12-1 for top debutant. Now, you got quality at the top, Sahith Theegala and those guys. But Meronk is a really good driver. He hits it a long way, too. He's number 1 in strokes gained off the tee on the DP World Tour this season, was 2nd in the category last year, top 30 in driving distance. And then the low senior, of which there are 5, Wai Yang, Sean McKeel, who won here in 2003. Shout out to my Indiana University guy. Phil Mickelson, Padraig Harrington, and Stephen Alker. 4-1 is the low over 50 here. He's won 6 times on PGA Tour Champions over the last 18 months since he's turned 50. He beat Steve Stricker, who won the Regions Tradition this past weekend, beat him by 4 at the Insperity Invitational down in Houston. So Phil, I'm willing to look at the Masters finish as an outlier, because if you look at what he's done on LIV since, not even been close. Padraig Harrington is the main competition here for Stephen Alker.
Kelley, it looks like I'm going to go next. I think I was getting teed up here to give my picks. So I sat here and said on Monday and lied to everybody, where I was like, I don't think I'm going to have any super long shots. And then I got to where I didn't have an outright card that I really filled out. And so then at that point, I went to the model and just like, okay, where are guys showing up? It doesn't match the odds that are posted, and I'll just throw a few bucks on those guys. So again, I lied yesterday. That's why you tuned in today. So I'm going to start out Xander Schauffele. This is for everything Wes said. He's on Wes's card as well. 1750 is what I have him at. He's 16 right now over on DraftKings. Still bettable, in my opinion. Listen, he doesn't do anything exceptionally well. He just does everything very well. Yes. And so on a course like this, where it's going to be a grind, give me the dude that is okay with taking par every now and then, can scramble to get that par if need be, can get hot with those long irons, especially very, very good with those long irons. And so give me Xander Schauffele, 1750. I'm also on Finau as well, Wes. When we talk about win equity and guys that have a complete game, he used to be the one that we would throw out because of the win equity argument, and now that is out the window. This guy can win. This guy can hold off big names and win tournaments as well, as we've already seen. Tony Finau, as complete a player as we have in this field, so do like him a ton. A couple of late ads here for me in Sung J M and Max Homa. These are not the best numbers that I'm sure a lot of people out there got. I get it. It is what it is. I wanted to get them on the card. And you look at Sung J, as far as form goes, there might not be a more consistent player on tour than Sung J M. It's why we bet him top 20s basically every single week. We've been printing money doing that with Sung J M. But this whole Jason Day win last week made me come in on Sung J M. And it was these guys that play well and continue to play well. And it's like our knock on them is, well, they can't win. They get in the winner's circle eventually, right? And Sung Jae's just been right there over and over and over again. And he just did
last week, winning over on the Korean Tour. So, you know, maybe that gives him some confidence. I considered Sung Jae as well.
Yeah, again, not the best number on Sung Jae, but I'm okay with it. Max Homa just fits the stat profile for me here, and so this is where I did. I was a slave really to the model type thing when it came to the stat profile deal for him. All the stuff I was looking for, long enough off the tee, finds enough fairways, has enough. Look, I even looked at like club head speed for a lot of these guys because hitting out of this rough, right, is going to be hard. I mean, it's going to be very tough. Like, do you have enough club head speed to get out of there and make sure that you can like have some playable shots? And he checked all the boxes. And honestly, the number drift, Kelley, here out over 40-1 on a guy. We talk about win equity. The guy's won a million times, 6 times, already. Like, hey, give me Homa at this number.
That's what we brought it up a bit yesterday with Homa. I wanted to get your thoughts on that because obviously we have bet him a lot to a lot of success on the pod. He's just one of those guys. Like we said from the beginning of the show today, we're looking for someone. You got to look for a player who's not bad in any one specific category really this week of the main statistical categories, and Homa fits that, right? He is good enough at everything to contend here.
So that's actually the end of kind of like the outright card plays for me. I grabbed a Cam Smith just as a number grab at 45-1. He's sitting 30-1 right now. He did contend at the Live event this past week, and so maybe he's in contention, but it was more the 45-1 number grab for me. So I actually did come in on some of these longer guys. I did come in on some guys that I didn't necessarily think I was going to be playing. I played Wyndham Clark at 80-1. If you look at the model, Wyndham Clark was inside the top 20 in every single version of every single thing that I ran, and now he's won, and so give me some win equity in there as well. 80-1, I like him. Taylor Moore, also a guy that has won, who's also inside the top 25 of every single version of every model. You're getting triple digits on him. And these two guys, Wes could probably explain a little bit better than me, but Wes, I was wondering why these guys weren't showing up, but I was sorting by category. And then you go over the last 24 rounds, strokes gained tee to green in this field. Yannick Paul is third overall in this entire field.
I wanted to bet him in Belgium last week, and then he withdrew because he got into the PGA.
And Thorborn Olsen is seventh in this entire field in strokes gained tee to green. Now, a lot of the other statistics didn't factor into the modeling, which is why they were so low in the modeling. So it just, when I was sorting by the different categories to see if there were any outliers, those guys were huge outliers, and I'm getting 525 and 800-1 on them. And if they're inside the top 5, top 6, top 7 in a very important category over the last 24 rounds, it was worth a flyer shot.
Olsen might be good in the low Dane market against the Højgaard brothers.
Kelley, let's get to yours real quick. We can circle back if we need to.
Okay, real quick, just outright say we share a lot of them in pod play if you want to get that ready coming up here.
Baby.
So I'm going to explain this a little bit. So this is a major. I was able to grab some of these numbers a week, 2 weeks back. Okay, so Patrick Cantlay 24-1. I love Tony Finau. Fire it up, Matt Brown, if you got it ready, because we're all on Finau this week. 29-1.
Pod play, Tony Finau.
29-1 on him. Okay, then I took a little bit longer shot. Sung Jae 40-1, Cameron Smith 45-1. You kind of already talked about both those, Matt. Tyrrell Hatton. This was a guy I was not expecting to play this week. Really digging into this event, into this field, into what he's done. Again, another guy who doesn't do anything really, doesn't struggle at much anything. I liked him at 46-1. My boy Keegan Brad or Brad Olsen.
Keegan Bradle.
Yeah. That's
new guy in the field. Keegan Bradle.
Yes.
Keegan Bradle.
Sharp there.
Yeah.
So I did
not
bet
Fraggle, Bradle, whatever. Like Keegan Fraggle. Yeah.
100-1 though, shot in Northeast where Keegan's from, plays well up there. That's what I bet for my outrights this week. I did want to make this point though. These are numbers, especially with Cantlay and Finau, who I'm very high on. I am very high on Xander Schauffele too, who I know you guys both bet. It's all a numbers game, right? So this is, at these odds, I was comfortable betting Patrick Cantlay and Tony Finau. If I had to start my outright card today, I'm not sure I would be betting those guys at current numbers. Finau probably still. Cantlay has probably moved a little bit too much from the 24 that I got. If I had to start an outright card today, it would be with Jon Rahm. It would be Jon Rahm, and then I would be playing a couple other guys after that. I just want to make that clear for our audience out there, because this is, sometimes we get the advantage of jumping on some of these outrights a little bit earlier with a little bit longer numbers. Real quick then, top 20, real heavy on Xander Schauffele, Patrick Cantlay, Tony Finau this week, and Tyrrell Hatton. Wyndham Clark, this is where I played him, Matt. Matt in the top 20 market, played a couple matchups with him. Finau over Jason Day in a matchup. Cam Davis over JT Poston in a matchup. and the all-injury matchup. Hideki Matsuyama over Jordan Spieth. Who withdraws first? We'll see.
I was looking down trying to find the 100-1 on Keegan Bradle. Couldn't find it. I don't know where he is here. Placement market bets for me real quick. I bet Scotty Scheffler top 5. The guy's just he's just a machine, and I'll take the plus money on him. He doesn't have to win it. I'm still going to get plus money on that. Top 10s on Jason Day and Ricky Fowler. Top 20s on Sung J M, Tyrrell Hatton, and Gary Woodland, who I don't think can win because he putts so horribly.
Yep.
But everything else fits the stat profile
his
here.
Striking's amazing.
Yeah. So give me a top 20. He's not going to make the putts needed to win it, but I'll take the top 20 at over 4-1 on him. And then top 40 plays on Taylor Moore and Yannick Paul, as I mentioned, a guy that just really did stand out to me a little bit more. If you did miss any part of today's show, be sure and go to your podcast player of choice and go ahead, subscribe, and download the VSiN Long Shots podcast, because that's where this will be as soon as we are done here. You can get all of our analysis on the course and our plays as well for Wes, Kelley, and Matt. Good luck on all your PGA Championship bets.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.